There's a familiar ring to this next story. Congress still has not agreed on how to balance the federal budget, and there's a deadline approaching. Margaret Warner explains the latest skirmish.
I want to also say a word or two about sequester.
Those who would be affected by the sequester.
Sequester. It's been the bipartisan buzzword of choice lately. The term refers to across-the-board budget cuts that take effect January 2nd if lawmakers can't produce a comprehensive deficit reduction package before then. The measure was part of the Budget Control Act passed by both houses of Congress and signed by President Obama a year ago. The Sequestration Act would slice $54 billion from defense and an equal amount from domestic programs from Head Start to the Border Patrol next year, with more to follow. Though the troops themselves are exempt, the looming defense cuts have kicked up a political firestorm, on full display Wednesday at a House Armed Services Committee hearing.
Committee will come to order.
The Office of Management and Budget's acting director, Jeffrey Zients, sparred with Republican Congressman Randy Forbes of Virginia.
Mr. Zients, I'm just asking if you can tell me if there's any proposal you can put forward today, any proposal that the president has put forward to stop sequestration that has gotten a single vote.
The root cause problem here is the Republicans' refusal.
Mr. Zients, I understand your partisanship. I'm just asking you if you can tell me if that proposal, can you point to such a proposal? Then your answer is no.
The verbal spat came after a weeks-long Republican campaign to sound the alarm to the public. Arizona Senator John McCain and other Republicans have taken the message to states with lots of defense-related jobs.
No uniformed military leader who we trust agrees that these cuts would do anything but devastate our national security.
House Armed Services Committee Chairman Buck McKeon took aim at President Obama at a Mitt Romney presidential campaign event Tuesday in Arlington, Virginia.
Has anybody here heard the word sequestration? Do you get sick and tired of hearing that we need to cut more out of defense?
And on the presidential campaign trail, President Obama and his Republican rival Mitt Romney have traded accusations about who's to blame.
Today, we're just months away from an arbitrary, across-the-board budget reduction that would saddle the military with $1 trillion in cuts, severely shrink our force structure, and impair our ability to meet and deter threats. Don't bother, by the way, trying to find a serious military rationale behind any of that. If I am President of the United States, I will not let that happen.
There are a number of Republicans in Congress who don't want you to know that most of them voted for these cuts. Now they're trying to wriggle out of what they agreed to do. Instead of making tough choices to reduce the deficit, they'd rather protect tax cuts for some of the wealthiest Americans, even if it risks big cuts in our military.
This is theater.
Former top OMB defense budget official Gordon Adams, now teaching at American University's School of International Service, sees a lot of posturing at play.
This is a highly staged and scripted drama where every player is playing his or her part. Everybody is jumping up and down, rending garments, tearing hair, gnashing teeth, and making it look like horrible things like Armageddon are going to happen. The reality is I don't expect it to happen, but even if it did, it's a slow roll process when it does. But it's a great thing to fight about in an election year.
Some defense contractors, like giant Lockheed Martin, have tried to stoke that fight by warning that under a federal 60-day notice law, they may have to issue conditional layoff alerts to their workers before the November 6th election. On Monday, the Department of Labor issued guidance that layoff announcements were not required and unwise, while cutbacks were still speculative and unforeseeable. Armed Services Chairman McKeon dismissed that guidance as politically motivated.
They have no legal authority to do what they did. So if I'm a CEO of a company and I go to my attorneys for guidance, they would just laugh at that. Because if they do lay off their employees and don't send the notice, then they're liable to be sued.
Fears of immediate hits to defense production lines in January are overblown, maintains defense budget expert Adams.
They will not feel the effect on January 1, in fact, because defense contractors today are working on contracts that were funded by dollars appropriated 3 years ago, 2 years ago, last year, and none of those dollars are going to be affected by a decision to do across-the-board cuts on January 2nd.
Yet Deputy Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter made clear at Wednesday's hearing that the administration is deeply worried about the impact.
Sequestration would introduce senseless chaos into the management of every single one of more than 2,500 defense investment programs, inefficiency into the defense industry that supports us, and would cause lasting disruptions even if it only extended for 1 year.
And after the hearing, Carter told the NewsHour the dilemma faced by contractors is well-founded.
Each and every contractor who works for the Department of Defense has to take heed, because remember, this is across the board. It is indiscriminate. So each and every, you named a bunch of aircraft and investment programs, every piece of our operations and maintenance, all of our personnel accounts, every single thing gets hit with this.
So it's not a political gimmick.
I've spoken to a number of our defense contractors. They take it as a serious matter. We have the same issue in the government, which is we're trying to balance being ready if this really terrible thing happens to us and not causing some of its bad effects before we even have a chance to solve it.
But as long as this remains a hot-button campaign issue for both parties, no one expects a deal to solve it before the November election.